Rabbit Holes,
a uniquely Pacific Northwest podcast.
I'm Shay.
And I'm Jody. Let's fall down the rabbit hole. Hi, Shay.
Hi, Jody.
A little treat for our listeners, a little bonus episode here.
Yeah, this will be the scene-by-scene discussion about the movie Singles that we reviewed with our dear husbands.
Yep. These are the scenes we cut from our own podcast to save you from a 2-hour monster episode.
Exactly.
So here's a little treat with the review of the scenes and then some other side conversation.
Exactly.
And again, sorry about the sound effects in the background and the fact that they couldn't quite keep their mouths up to the microphone
Yes,
yet.
I will work with this one as much as I can to try to get their part of the conversation louder, because as they talk, they would lean back in their chair, which was very annoying. Anyway.
And also cause noises in the
Yes, it
background,
did.
yes. But
We still love
very,
them.
yes, and very enjoyable. We had a great time recording it.
We
It's fun.
did. We'll bring them back, but we said we're going to get them headsets so that the microphone is always attached right in front of their mouth.
Yeah. Maybe we'll have a better sound quality than them, but at least it will be a steady quality. For them.
Exactly. All right, guys. We'll enjoy this episode. Thanks so much. Well, what do you guys think about getting into the movie, and we can kind of briefly synopsis the scenes and kind of go through it, and we can talk about the different things and how it impacted us?
You're our leader on this.
All right.
Lead us.
Lead us, fearless leader. All right. So the movie starts with the credits over, B-roll of the iconic Seattle skyline and different locations like the Moore Theater and just downtown, the waterfront, that kind of thing. So it's kind of your Seattle in a nutshell. And then we're introduced to Linda Powell, played by Kyra Sedgwick. And she is talking directly to camera. There's a lot of talking directly to camera and breaking that fourth wall in this movie about her perfect apartment that even has a garage parking space. And as she's doing that, she does use her clicker, which comes back. That's the clicker's a character in this movie.
Yeah.
It comes back. So she uses her clicker to open the garage over her shoulder. Now, her building is a converted Victorian home that's been converted into apartments. It's at, in case anybody wants to look it up, it's at 203 31st Avenue, and it's in the Leschi Avenue of Seattle, which, just for reference later, is about a 10-minute drive from the Coryell Court Apartments in Capitol Hill. So 8 to 10 minutes, depending on traffic.
And what's the Coryell apartment?
We'll get to that. That's just a reference. So the movie then moves on to the story of Linda's meeting with Luis. He's a UW, or as he says, a U of W, engineering student from Spain, where he helps her get to an auto mechanic when she has car trouble. And just a little fun fact, specifically that car mechanic is University Auto Repair on Roosevelt Way Northeast, and it's near UW. So at that point, he gives her, they're chit-chatting, he gives her this very rough Picasso-like sketch, supposedly of her, I guess.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, with his number on the
It's
back.
pretty vague. He could have drawn that 40 times, given it to 40 ladies.
Which perhaps he did. A little foreshadowing there. So he gives her this sketch and his number's on the back, and later we see her sitting on her couch and she's looking at it and smiling to herself, and I guess decides to call him, because then we are treated to a dating montage of them walking through. That was Pike, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where they're walking through and
Oh, the market, yeah.
playing
for
with
sure.
crabs. I don't
Oh,
think they
right.
appreciate when you pick up the crabs and play with them in each
I
other's
actually
faces.
did that to her. On
Yeah,
a
but
date.
that was actually
on a
you.
date in
That was one of our
87.
Oh my
first
God, you
dates.
literally lived that scene.
We did that. We lived that scene. And then we actually...
I chased her down the middle of the street and had her pinned down in the middle of the street in front of the
we
very
made
first
out
Starbucks.
in the park.
Did you buy the crab, though?
No, I stole the fish and I was just chasing her down the street with it.
Rude.
I put it back.
Rude still. Touching other people's food.
Yes, we did this as teenagers.
Yeah.
I think we went down there in my 71 Super Beetle.
Yeah.
Thought that-
With the vacuum transmission.
yes. And then what's that gray paint, primer paint?
Yeah. Orange, safety orange and primer gray.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Yes.
great.
There weren't
Anyway.
actually too many scenes at Pike in this. I actually noticed that. I thought that there would be a lot more, but it was kind of just through the B-roll, and then that was really the only Pike scene.
Because it's probably hard to shut down Pike Market.
Sure, it's
and
very
get
busy.
permits to film.
Yeah. So for people who don't know Seattle, Pike Market, it's Pike Place, not Pikes. Pike Place is a fish and produce market that's kind of near between the waterfront and downtown of Seattle. It's big tourist attraction. You've seen it in every single Seattle-based anything, Frasier, whatever.
Sleepless in Seattle.
Sleepless in Seattle.
all-
Yeah. And it's actually fun to go to. Like, it's definitely
Oh,
worth
yeah.
a visit if you come here. Parking's terrible. Now, as Jody and I told you last episode, Pike Brewing is no longer in the market.
Nope, it's in Soto, but it was there. Had a
Yeah.
nice view.
Yeah.
Oh, we used to meet my sister in there and stuff for beers. And
Yeah. Well, now there's Old Stove, which Old Stove is pretty good. An Old Stove, right?
Excellent.
Yeah. Yeah. They have good beer. Anyways, moving on. Anybody else have anything to say about
I
our
have
meeting
some-
with Louise so far?
I do.
Yeah.
Can we talk about football? Because it is Sunday.
I know the Hawks are on. I think. Anyway,
Sorry.
No, I was just like, I'm just sitting here. I think it's maybe just because of my age now or whatever. But I was just, I'm just thinking about the whole thing playing out, and I'm like, well, that guy worked so hard to get laid. It's like, dude, if you got to work that hard, what are you doing, man?
Right.
I mean, he had to run a game. He had to act like he was from a foreign country, and he was getting on a plane to go to Yemen or wherever the hell he was going. I'm like, going, you really worked that hard?
Okay, but this goes back to what we were.
What the hell is wrong with you?
This goes back to what I was talking about. Back then, you had to have some sort of game. You couldn't just open an app and swipe right and tell 20 girls that I'm attracted to you online. And if one gets back to you, you know what you're doing later that night.
Okay, so this is weird because I have been married for so in this scene. It's in this exact scene. When I would go out with my friends, I was the quintessential wingman because I had no stake in any game. So I would just start talking to people. Hey, have you met my friend over here? You know, I would do that. I would go, hey, have you met my friend? And that's how guys love to go out with me because I just talked to them because I didn't care. So it worked out. So that's why I'm like thinking, I guess now I'm realizing I was their game. So
Yeah, they used you. Oh, yes, you were.
I was their game. That's how that worked.
I don't have to have
You
a
had-
name. I'll just bring Keith, and he'll meet the girls for me and then just hand them over.
You know,
You had nothing to lose.
well, I mean, you could walk up. I
yeah.
could totally walk up and go, "Hey, does this smell like chloroform?" And they'd start laughing. I'd start talking and say, "Hey, have you met my friend? He's an engineer at Boeing, and he doesn't know how to talk to girls or where to put his hands." So,
Oh my god, that's
and so then he would go, or whatever for a minute, but then he would
That's
like
excellent.
laugh. He would actually start laughing. They would laugh, and then the next thing you know, he's going out on a date with her or whatever. So it always worked out great for him. I guess I didn't realize that I was really all their game. That's crazy.
So what's really funny though is coming back to that is later on in the movie, the Eric Stoltz, the mime, is scorning that guy who's like, I build airplanes, and he's like, oh, because everybody in Seattle at that time worked for Boeing.
Oh,
So it's
yeah.
like, oh, good for you. Well, moving on. So we cut to Linda at her work, and she's dishing with her friend Ruth about how she met this wonderful guy. And she works for the Seattle Environmental Council, which isn't super important. It comes back later because
Is it a thing? Did we ever check to see
I
if that was
never
right? I
checked.
thought that when we watched it earlier
I also
today.
had something to say about that too. Again, this film doesn't really age well because I'm trying to think back to your guys' age, especially. Who did you know our age named Linda or Ruth? And I'm not making fun of anybody, and I'm sure you're going to hear about it.
Those
But
were
I'm-
50-year-old ladies.
I know it's like
At that
I love my
time.
grandma to death, but her name was Edna. You, name me anybody in the last 3 generations named Edna. You know, it's like,
Right. I do know somebody named Ruth, but that's, one.
I think we had a couple Lindas that we went to school with.
But I'm thinking more like Jenny's and
Yeah.
Michelle's
you
and
know, all our parents got the
Lori,
memo.
Even
you know?
Tiffany. Yeah.
Heather.
Yeah, exactly.
Jody.
Heather's a big.
Just kidding.
Thank you.
Jody and Shay, very popular names.
Not Shay. Not Shay.
I'm just kidding. Jody's not either. Not for girls.
So Linda's telling her friend Ruth about this guy and how his visa runs out in 2 months and how she actually could marry him. So Ruth is like, well, if you get married, would you still go out dancing? So then we cut to them dancing in a club. Yeah, we'll still go out dancing is what Linda
Forever.
says. And then
Well,
she
always.
she's walking to the bar, and who does she see at the bar but Luis, who's supposed to be gone. Apparently he called her from the airport, and he is canoodling with another woman. And as this is happening, the song State of Love and Trust plays, which I thought was a good choice because Love and Trust just went out the window, and it is Pearl Jam. Then Mookie, what?
No,
Mookie
by
Blaylock.
then it was Pearl
By then it
Jam.
was Pearl Jam. Okay, so they went from Mookie something to Pearl Jam before it was released, but
Yeah.
after filming. Okay.
Yeah, because that supposedly that song came in post production.
Oh.
So that was added after the fact.
Interesting. Okay.
So you see all these people dance around and they're not actually dancing to that song.
Well, in movies, they're not. They're dancing to nothing.
It was clear that they were dancing.
Yeah, especially in the 80s and 90s where they had that very bouncy dance, where people just go,
It's kind of
That's still my dance. That's the only one I got.
the slight emo dance. Look at the floor, turn back and forth.
But is that even a thing now? Do
Emo?
kids go out dancing?
Yeah.
sure.
They do?
I don't,
Got to
our
play Lady Gaga somewhere, right?
our daughters are all in the they're past this now, but they went
They're
to
in the 30s now, so it's
not- yeah,
the
yeah.
youngest is 27. So
right, and they went to Sir Mix-a-Lot like just a couple years ago and were shaking
it's
their booty on the
hilarious.
stage.
they got on stage with Sir
Yeah,
Mix-a-Lot.
and they were twerking on stage with Sir Mix-a-Lot next to him. I
He's
don't know how I feel
still
about that as a
raking in
father.
bucks from when he got back. Huh?
Yeah, for sure.
He lived down the street from one of my homeschool group friends.
Yeah, he actually is really well known in the
Yeah.
area. Like when our oldest worked at Warthog
Barbecue.
barbecue in Fife, it was his favorite barbecue restaurant. He would make a special trip down there. They'd show up with a entourage and get his favorite barbecue.
Did he
I love
always
it.
order the baby back ribs?
Ooh, good question. I'll have to ask her.
Oh, Keith, can you say?
She said he was fabulous.
I
Can you
want
do
my
it?
baby back, baby back. Baby.
Thank you. That's all I needed. All right, so she sees Louise cheating on her with somebody else, leaves the bar. We see her in front of the DeSoto nightclub with Mother Love Bone graffiti behind her, another kind of iconic Seattle moment. And then we cut to her at the electronics store, where apparently you had 30 different options for a garage clicker.
And one was also a pager. It's dual function.
But I just love that the guy trying to sell her this too is like, you can't go wrong with the Genie Classic. It's like the Dodge Dart of garage door openers. Oh, because I forgot to point out, she had given her garage clicker to Louise before he left, saying you'll always have a place to park when you come back to visit.
And now that Louise is a scumbag,
Yes,
she needs
exactly.
to now lock her door.
So next we meet Steve Dunn, played by Campbell Scott, who I always refer to as Scott Campbell because he has two first names.
They could be both two last names,
Yeah, exactly. Campbell's more of a last name, I think. Who is talking directly to camera again about a recent breakup and blah, 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 how dating is too complicated and confusing, and that for the next 3 years, he will just be concentrating on work. And this is also when we first meet Cliff, who's making a bunch of noise in his flower truck out on the street, and Steve has to yell at him.
And Cliff's played by who?
Cliff is played by Matt Dillon, who I really remember from Wild Things, that very problematic one with Denise Richards and Nev Campbell. What about you? Where do you?
I don't see any problem with that movie, but anyway.
Teacher having sex with his teenage students.
When you have to think about what time frame that came out, that was a normal thing around here.
It was actually.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
I think back to what was
very
normal at
egalitarian.
that time.
As a matter of
It's like-
fact, I feel like I was cheated out of my educational experience.
I feel like that would have been, you'd have been prime opportunity too. Oh, there you go. Yes. Pour in the drink. We're having champagne with
Yes,
our.
and the Tenated is not a Pacific Northwest
It
one.
is
Sorry,
not.
we're
It is-
cheating.
It is straight cheap Prosecco.
So I think everybody, our generation, thought of Matt Dillon from The Outsiders.
Oh,
Yes.
Oh, I don't know that I've still even seen
Our
that.
That's because you
generation.
were a baby there.
Oh, yeah. The Outsiders. Were you even born yet?
Outsiders.
I was born in '79.
And
have you know.
Outsiders came out in 1983, so you were 4.
Yeah.
I would not have watched
You were
it.
barely born.
But all the prepubescent girls in grammar school thought Matt Dillon was everything.
Yeah.
Oh,
okay.
yeah.
Okay.
And remember, what was it, Little Darlings he started out with originally?
I just
Yeah.
remember Outsiders and Pony Boy Stay Golden and all that, and all the girls loved it.
Yeah. Ralph Macchio might have only been 25 at the time he was playing a 16-year-old. Because he
Probably.
continued to do that until he was almost 40, I believe.
Well, the actors playing 20-year-old or 20-something-year-olds in this movie were all a decade older, and they all seemed like they were in their 40s to me, except
and
for Bridget Fonda. She seemed like a 20-something-year-old, but Scott Campbell and Kira Sedgwick, they look like they were 40. I'm
Right.
sorry. Like,
Well,
there's no...
I don't know, because, again, we had a very different early 20s, but I'm like we weren't even that
Old looking or behaving.
We weren't that old behaving.
We didn't.
And we had
didn't-
kids.
Yeah, we weren't that mature.
Yes, not at all. And I mean, and I don't know if that lends to just the fact that, you know, the economic background we came, you know, I mean, I don't know if it just lent to
They
our
had
life
professional
versus,
jobs, and we did not.
yeah, they were 25 and actually like, hey, I just got my engineering degree. And we were like, yeah, I just got a really good job. You know?
Yeah, it did seem like the character Steve, who works at the Department of Transportation, like he seemed to have a pretty high position. Like people
Right.
were talking to him like he was a manager of some sort, and you know, anyway. But
Anybody was only like
he was supposed to be
25.
25, yeah.
But you know,
He had a cubicle. He wasn't that high up.
I will bring this up, and I think it probably has a little bit to do with industry, depending on what you got into after college or whatever. But I personally, I don't know if you felt this way, just from the people I grew up in my generation around me, there was such an unrealistic expectation after high school. Like you just thought you were going to have the same job as your dad and live in basically down this, you know, buy the same house, have this, like your starting point was where your family was at right at that moment. Like there was not this idea of you had to go do that. It was like just somehow supposed to be handed to you. I thought that was really weird about our generation that way, because it's like they just like most of the people I was around just had this expectation like, oh well, I'm just gonna like
Do what my dad did.
no, you know, it's the Melrose Place theory. Oh, I'm so bored today, I'm gonna start an advertising company. You know what I mean? And that's the generation was raised up on that TV, and I think they all thought that's how it worked. Not like, hey, you know, you got to pay your dues, you got to do this, you got to do that.
Start low and
Yeah,
Work your way up.
I don't know if it was that way for you guys down there, but there was a real definite attitude from a lot of the people in my generation like that. And I think that kind of bled over into this movie a little bit, because, you know, it's like the only one that seemed real at that time doing what he's doing was Cliff. To me, he almost seemed like the realest character in that whole movie, but... You know, he's working 4 jobs. He's kind of an ass. He's, you know,
Right.
he's a typical 25-year-old.
Thinks his music's so great that there's not going to be anything
Right.
negative said about him,
He's
or at
living
least
in-
don't read it to me.
Yeah.
He's got barely enough money for his crap hole apartment, you know.
Right.
And
Well, and the thing is, like, even you could say Bridget Fonda's character, which we'll get to meeting here in a moment, like, she works at a coffee shop, so she's not making a ton, but when she was looking for something to eat in her fridge, there was a bottle of Dom in there.
yeah. And she paid. Hey, and by the way,
Like,
on
where'd
her-
that come from?
On her little coffee job, she paid off all her student loans and was able to go
architecture school.
Yeah, it's like, come on,
Right.
you know, it's like
Hey,
that's not.
school was cheaper then.
It was.
It still wouldn't have been
If she got her prereqs at Green River Community College like the rest of us.
right.
You too? I did too.
Hey!
Yes. I did
What
not-
were they? The crocodiles?
Gators.
The gators, yes. I was close.
I wonder.
I don't think I ever knew. I was just there to get my prereqs.
I just expected that a serial killer was going to pick me up on that campus, though.
What? I thought it was a nice campus.
It was all wooded.
Yes, it is. That's what I loved about it, right? I'm the hiker,
Right.
remember?
All right, so let's move on to this movie. So before we leave Steve, he tells about how his dad left him at 8. And before he left, he said, have fun, stay single, which sticks with him today. He was 8 years old. And then we cut to him with his mom at the doctor. And the doctor is explaining sex, saying that out of the penis comes spam. And that's
Yes.
how he learned about sex.
I don't know if I can eat spam again. Not that I
Right.
do or have
You know
recently,
what?
but like now I don't know if I was going
almost-
to eat that. What's that? Shusimi or shumi with the rice and the seaweed
Oh,
wraps?
yeah. I don't eat spam anyways. It's not good for you.
Well, you
No,
know
it's
what
not,
though?
but every once
If
in a
I
while
could
you gotta-
shoot spam out of my dick, oh my god.
Oh, wouldn't that hurt though?
No,
Think about
first
spam.
off,
You wanna
I'd
peel.
never go hungry.
Oh God! I married a 12-year-old.
I think we just crossed some topics here. I think the whole thing just changed.
Would that make me some weird version of
That's
Jesus?
led to
Think about
creepy
that.
porn.
No, so you
No,
know
they-
people say when they're like trying to survive with no food or water, they drink their own urine. But could you just like eat your own sperm because it's spam and
No.
you would survive?
I've got a theory that I could actually, you know, instead of turning water into wine
Shay's
and all
engaging. Shay's engaging.
that, what does it mean if I turn my urine into spam?
No, it's not your urine. It's your sperm.
Oh,
It's your
just-
sperm.
Or even better.
Here's
What
So
the
does
then you
weird
have to
thing.
have urine and spam to eat.
does that mean like I'm a lower level deity? What does that mean?
Oh God.
But Keith has had nothing to drink yet.
Yes, no, right. He's the only one not partaking in alcohol this morning. This is straight sobriety discussion.
I literally just called him. That's just Steve.
That's his dad.
Sperm into spam.
I love it.
So next we're gonna meet Janet, who is played by a young, cute little Bridget Fonda, who works at the Java Stop, which is located in the OK Hotel, which at that time was a big bar and music venue where, who was it again that had their debut of a very popular song there?
Supposedly Nirvana played Smells Like Teen Spirit there the first time. I don't know this for a fact. I just read it.
But also, I guess Soundgarden and Mudhoney both played there as well. So this is also where we officially meet Cliff, because Janet is enamored by her rock star boyfriend, played by Matt Dillon, and his band Citizen Dick, who's
The way you say it.
Citizen Dick, whose number one single, well, not number one single, just their only single, that's why it's number one,
For them.
is called Touch Me, I'm Dick, which is actually a play off of a Mudhoney song, right? Was it Mudhoney?
Yeah.
The Touch Me, I'm Sick. I'm looking at you because you know everything about this movie, but Keith says yes. Okay.
Rich is trying
So-
really hard not to cross the line and to know it all.
Do it. You know it all.
No, I don't.
usually
I
am.
really
No,
don't.
I respect this. I respect
Jump
this. You
in
should
whenever you
always
want.
say
This is-
what you.
this is an open
do know.
discussion.
But just to preface the whole thing, none of us are experts. That's
Yeah.
I think
Oh,
you've
no.
realized
Exactly.
this in our previous podcast. We are doing research, low level research. I am a nurse and I have a degree in science, so I need to tell you this is not real research. So we'll just preface it right now. We are going off what we read, seen, and heard.
And the
just-
internet is never wrong.
Right. Wikipedia is the law.
Oh my God. You just did like the SNL ladies. Yes, I like those sweaty balls.
Oh no, we've been doing that since the second I put these headphones on. I was like, I said sweaty balls, and she was like, "What are you talking about?" And then I told her.
I like how they glisten in the light.
Yeah, I'm always talking real quiet and soft.
Well, and then we had
sweaty
to watch
balls.
the one with Betty White where they talk about eating her bran muffin.
Yeah.
Okay, anyways,
Dusty
moving on. We can't so we find out that Cliff, Steve, and Jana all live in the same building, and then we cut to Cliff's basement apartment where he's having band practice. And so the practice. So fun fact, this room where that is Cliff's apartment is actually just the laundry room of the apartment building. So now we are finally at Coryell Court Apartments, which is located at, I think it's 1820 East John.
I'm going to tell you. You keep talking. I'll find it.
So the thing about this apartment that is really fun for Rich and I is for 10 years, we actually lived across the street from this apartment building. So in the flyover shots at the end, yes, it is 1820 East Thomas. Sorry, I forgot John turns into Thomas. So in the flyover shots at the end, you see an
That
empty
could mean
lot.
a lot these days. You know?
So you see the flyover shot, and there's an empty lot there, and that is the future location of our townhouse, which was built in either 96 or 98. I can't remember, but so we've walked through this neighborhood so many times, so we're really, really familiar with the Coryell Court Apartments. We could see it from our window, so it's
But we didn't realize that when we moved in.
yeah. Rich is the one who
Yeah, I
found
was
it out.
walking by it one day and said, "Holy smokes, that's the
That looks familiar.
building from Singles."
Yeah, I think because we never really walked past the front of it because we didn't walk that way very often. We would always go the other way towards downtown. And so what we saw was the side of the building. So it was just a brick apartment building, like no big deal. You don't recognize it till you walk past the front and you see that courtyard, which by the way does not have that fountain. That fountain was built for the movie and it's just made out of styrofoam. So at this point, Cliff is telling Janet that he sees other people, but Janet just is so clueless and she doesn't believe it. And she's just way into this relationship and he obviously doesn't give a crap about her. And this is where we get a big insight into the relationship where Janet is delusional and needy and Cliff is just an imbecile. And this is also where we get the first shot of Cliff's bandmate, Jeff Ament, who is famous for being in some little Seattle band.
Is that a glare? I think that's a glare.
Pearl Jam. He's in Pearl Jam.
Vein was popping out of his
So from here, we cut to Steve and his friend David Bailey on their way to the Club de Soto, and they can't seem to find it. Bailey refers to his life as a French movie. I have no idea what that means.
Right. And neither did they. And
Did they? Yeah,
commented
I don't
on
know.
it.
So they're trying to find Club de Soto. They stop to ask a mime for directions. Now, I lived in Seattle for quite some time. I never saw a mime.
What?
Did you see
I
a
just
mime?
assumed they were down there.
Have you ever seen
on
a
every
mime?
block?
Have you ever seen a mime?
No, not in Seattle.
Yeah.
Not in Seattle. I mean, I've seen them in San Francisco and Hawaii, but I think it's just.
I've never seen a mime in my life.
Really?
No. Have you seen a
Yeah.
lime in real life?
Yeah,
A
you
lime?
don't-
A mime?
You
I've
don't,
seen a lime and a mime.
you don't want to.
No, it's not very fun.
It's weird.
It's
I'm like, just talk. You can, and you know it.
stop annoying me.
Yeah, that's true. They're very in your face and annoying. Yeah.
So this mime is played by Eric Stoltz, another fun fact, who I have no idea what else he did.
You don't know what else.
Mask.
Yeah.
It was a huge movie. Again, you were young.
I haven't seen the Mask
might have
in
been
20
6 then.
years.
He was
so.
he was huge between like mid '80s to 2000.
Yeah.
Huge.
So he was also dating Bridget Fonda at that time.
Oh,
Was he really?
Yes.
Well,
So
that
that
explains
is-
why
yeah.
he's in the movie then.
And he can apparently talk, even though he is a mime.
Well, he did talk in the movie.
That's what I said.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
That's what I meant.
I was like, did
Sorry,
you miss
was-
that entire scene?
No, apparently
No.
he can talk. And
think
apparently he's not a Thomas Brothers guide, which I really liked.
Yeah, lots of references to things that don't exist anymore.
Exactly.
That
So,
Thomas guide for
For
sure.
our younger listeners, like Jody's children, a Thomas Brothers guide was a map book, and every couple of years they would do an update that then you had to add to it, and it's like a spiral binder, so you had to like slide it into the spiral binding, and that is how you got around. We did not have Google Maps. And
Right.
they discontinued it about, I want to say probably 10 years ago.
Yeah, the GPS has taken over.
Mm-hmm.
So you used to have to be able to plan ahead. When you looked it up, you had to be able to read it. So if you're driving alone, you would have to either pull over or be careful.
Yeah. If you were lucky enough to have a copy machine, you would
Make
copy off
copies,
the
yeah.
pages so that you didn't have to open the book. Yeah. Mhm.
I did not ever have one. There's no point in me having one. Of
No.
all the things I can do, reading a map is not one.
It is.
I'm dyslexic. It is bad.
It's
Very.
really bad. Is that the water? Yes, that's the
I
ocean.
know what the pictures mean.
So they end up at an Alice in Chains concert. And the song that they're playing at that time is Ain't Like That, where Steve finally first sees Linda in the crowd with her beautiful curly blonde hair.
That's exactly what attracted him, I'm sure.
her
of it.
hair was really, really beautiful.
You don't think it was the shoulder pads in her jacket?
That was everybody, though.
Yeah, there was a lot of those.
But
Not everyone
nothing
had that
else
gorgeous
was-
hair.
Yeah, yeah. So he is mesmerized and he heads over to Linda and he says that his friend and he have a long running argument that when you go to a place like that, you have to have an act. So he decided that he could either leave her alone, come up with an act, or just be himself. And he decided to be himself. Linda replies that not having an act is an act. And so he says, thank you, and leaves. So then we cut to director Cameron Crowe actually interviewing Cliff about his band. And Cliff at this point says, we are huge in Europe.
Belgium.
in Belgium right, and Italy, and tries to explain what Touch Me, I'm Dick is all about. He's like, well, it's like, touch me, I'm Dick.
And I like to be touched.
So now Alice in Chains, because we're just going, remember, it's the soundtrack that makes this movie. So now they're playing Wood, which is a great movie. And Steve and Bailey run into Linda, Ruth, and Ruth outside the club. And Steve tries to get the gals to go somewhere with them, but Bailey just blows it. So at this point, then we're at a magazine stand, which I thought was the magazine stand in Pike Market, but apparently it was just one that was built for the movie, and it was like the Pioneer newsstand or something like that.
It was just for the movie.
Right.
And then it was taken down.
Yeah. And here we see Linda again. So this is where they actually strike up their relationship. Then we finally meet Debbie Hunt at the Java stop. So Debbie Hunt, redheaded, and she is an advertising exec at a local TV station. And she says that she's going to do that video date that the guy sent her for Christmas as a joke at, what is it, Expect the Best video dating services. So from here, we finally get to be with Steve at his job. So he works at the Department of Transportation, and he is working on a super train. So he thinks that if you have a public transportation system where you give people good coffee and good music, they'll get out of their cars and park and ride. So that's,
And here we are 30 years later, and
Right.
it still hasn't come to fruition, although we're spending billions of dollars on it.
yep. So I think if we were to come back in the year 2044, we would still be doing construction on the I-5 corridor in Tacoma.
Yeah, Tacoma for sure.
Yeah, I will say that it's very ironic that they're spending the billions of dollars to put back in a train system that existed, that they ripped out, and now they're just putting it all back in. So
I don't know about this.
the interurban, waiting on the interurban, the whole. It was the original, the interurban light rail ran from Tacoma to Everett. That's what the interurban trail is. Yeah, I can ride from Tacoma to Everett on my bike.
That was a light rail?
That was it
Rails
was
to
an electrified
trails.
light rail. Yeah.
Oh, shit.
It literally ran right by our old house on the other side of the valley.
Huh.
There's an old tunnel they blew up there. It's a 200-foot sweeping tunnel that ran through Stewart Point up there.
But they were like, well, nobody's going to need to leave because we're building the city and nobody
We want
needs
a
to go anywhere.
trail.
So basically, it ran down West Valley, and the reason West Valley exists is because they used the light rail to haul. West Valley Highway was originally cedar planks, and they took it, and they would dump the cedar planks off, and they built West Valley. Well, once they did that, it was faster to get to Seattle to Tacoma by car than it was trying to get on the interurban and being tied to their schedule. So more and more people moved away from the trains and started taking the buses and stuff.
Okay.
And as that happened, it eventually just killed the interurban.
So cedar planks were faster than the rail.
At the time, yeah. I mean, we're talking like the 1920s, and they had Model A cruising down
Oh, that's what I was thinking. Oh my
Yeah,
gosh.
yeah.
Can you imagine what that did to your back?
I was thinking I need a sports bra.
But yeah, so they it ran
feel it
all the
in
way
my
from
butthole.
Tacoma to Seattle.
Another rabbit hole.
Yeah, that's a long. You can get a lot of stuff off of that.
That's
I mean,
another rabbit hole.
No kidding.
like one of Haley's friends used to live in the old train station's house on the hill. There it was the old conductor's house, the old train station
Oh,
house.
very cool.
Yeah,
Very cool.
right there at the parking. There's a parking lot right across the street is the house, and anyway, a lot of weird stuff.
Well, Steve is obsessed with traffic and gridlock. He does talk about, do you think about traffic? I think about traffic all the time.
Steve would be really mad right now.
I know he would be, and also
They have not figured out gridlock on the
Steve, it's the
I-5
same.
corridor.
Steve, it's the same.
it's worse.
It's worse.
It's because Steve is not real. If Steve was real, we'd have trains.
If Steve was real, he wouldn't be 25 saying all I think about is traffic.
Right? Yeah, no 25-year-old says that. So we eventually get back to Steve and Linda. He's convinced her to go out with him to meet for water at and now we're at the Virginia Inn. So this is at the corner of First and Virginia. So it's still there. You can still go there. It's just a little diner type coffee shop. It's just outside of Pike Market. And this is where we are introduced to Paul Giamatti for the first
With hair.
time on the screen with hair. He is messily making out with another woman and like inhaling her hair or something like that. And he has literally one word. What? I mean, the hair just like in each other's throats. It's really disgusting. We end up seeing Steve and Linda sitting on the fountain at Coryell Court, where I guess like Linda's doing laundry there. We never get to see the in between. Like it goes from them having this water date at the Virginia Inn to him at work thinking about her, and then
Right.
she's doing laundry at his
Right.
place.
And then he's like, do you want to go upstairs while it dries or something? And I was thinking, how did we get here?
What was the conversation in between this? Like, he's like, she didn't want to go out. She was very clear. She's like, I'm getting over someone. And he was like, oh, okay. But then she unlocked the door for him. And he was like, well, this is the woman of my dreams. And I'm going to marry her in his mind, I guess.
Reached across. That's actually one of the iconic things. The whole thing is that she reached over. She was thoughtful enough
Yes.
to reach over and unlock his door so he didn't have to when he got there.
Yeah. But then we cut from that to she didn't
Yeah.
really want to go out. And then explain to me, why is she doing laundry at his apartment?
Right, that's what I was thinking. How did we get here? Why does she not have laundry? Like, and why does she have her laundry with her? Like,
Well, from what I understand, the original movie, before they cut it, was 2 hours and 45 minutes.
Oh, okay.
So
wow.
some of that is probably ended up on
Okay.
the cutting room floor.
Okay. That would be way too long to be bored.
well, it's an hour and 39 minutes
Yes.
now or something. So like that's like almost twice as long.
I know, another hour. I couldn't watch it. Yeah, but what is it like? You're like, I know you said you were trying to get over somebody and didn't want to go out, but you want to just like come over and do laundry at my place?
Right.
What is that?
I know. I'm curious. I'm so curious about how we got here.
So we get to see them.
Well, okay, to go back to my thing about the Spanish dude, this guy
Which
is
Spanish dude?
the guy
Luis from
Oh,
Beginning.
Luis. Yeah, yes.
Look at the juxtaposition of this whole thing. It's like this guy is he's like I think she was talking about earlier, like the pickup artist runs some scam, and here's this guy going, "You want to do laundry at my house?" And like,
Nothing's more wholesome than doing laundry, I guess.
Right?
I don't know. But we end up back in Steve's apartment and she's remarking on his albums. So I thought this was a really fun kind of time capsule in here because on his shelf we see CDs, which were still fairly new in 1992. I remember when my dad brought home the first CD player in the late 80s and was very excited about it. But we also see cassette tapes, which for those children out there, again, this is how we used to get music. And then record albums, which have come back around. Most kids know what record albums are. So he had all three of those. Vinyl, yeah. Or just albums, as they're called in this movie. Oh, you have albums. Now, the thing that bothered me is as they're sitting there going through his album collection and listening to all sorts of things, he has a lot of albums that still have the plastic on them, and she's just ripping the
them off
plastic
and throwing it
She
off the
rips it
side.
right off of the Clash album, and I was like, no!
I know, and he's so calm. He's so calm.
And she's not even paying attention. She just rips it off and
Throws it to the
on
side.
the floor. So they're sitting there talking about their past relationships. We get introduced to one of her past boyfriends who is sensitive ponytail guy, Andy. And
Who definitely existed in the 90s.
oh,
yeah.
absolutely. Rich, can you describe what Andy was wearing and what he looked like?
No, I can't.
He was wearing a
I
fake
refuse.
leather, like fake suede vest over a blue chambray button-down shirt that was buttoned up to the neck, had a ponytail and wire-rimmed glasses.
The hair in the pony. I mean, he's got thin hair. It's not a beautiful, bountiful ponytail.
No.
It's like
it was like he definitely was probably also a magician sort of ponytail.
didn't he seem okay?
Look into the eyes, not
he
around the
seemed
eyes.
like-
Look into the eyes.
remember the bad guy from Die Hard?
Yeah.
The German bad guy from Die Hard.
Yes.
And then he ends up
Hans.
Reuter,
I think,
and he ends
right?
up hanging him with the chain. He looked exactly like that guy, only like just make him super nerdy.
I can see that, yeah.
Yeah, the hair,
sure,
whole
sure.
bit. Just like, okay, if you took one guy and made him a giant nerd, that's what that guy looked like. Sensitive ponytail guy.
So there is a point where they're talking where they almost kiss, but then she's like, my laundry, and runs off. We see them down below where they're saying goodbye. He goes to shake her hand. And he offers her, again, the clicker to the garage.
Yeah.
Here it comes back. And it freaks her out and she takes off. But then she's back at her house and the doorbell rings and she answers it and it's Steve. And here is the iconic line. He goes, I was just nowhere near your neighborhood.
Yeah.
And then they kiss and they go inside and we get a knocking boots against the dresser scene.
Yeah.
Where sensitive ponytail guy Andy, who she's friends with now, also calls and talks
leaves a
about
message
Steve.
on the answering machine. What was it? A Ford answering machine?
No, that was Janet's answering
Oh,
machine.
yeah.
It was the Ford answering machine. But I loved it that she was like, can you wait and not like come yet? And then she asks him, so what are you thinking? Never ask somebody what they're thinking during sex. Because it cuts to an interview with, what is it, Xavier McDaniels, the like Supersonics player. An interview with him. That's what he's thinking about, to not come. And he turns directly to camera, Steve, don't come yet. Which is so good. So now we're back with Janet and she's and I've been this girl, that's the thing. I'm super needy, pacing. Why hasn't he called? It's been an hour. He said he would call. Should I call him? No, I shouldn't call him. That would look too desperate. Okay, how long is an appropriate time to wait until calling him? And this is when we get a view inside her fridge where she's like, and this line hit me. I've been starving myself for this guy. What do I have in here to eat? And she's like, a salad. I can eat that.
Ugh.
Also, it's where we see the bottle of Dom. I was like, wait a minute.
I'm gonna have Dom and salad.
But it's like she's starving herself for this guy who doesn't give a shit about her, and she's just desperate. And I'm like, I've been that girl in the past, so it kind of hit to home there. And something that Rich mentioned during the movie is this was the second time that we heard a reference to how long you should wait before you call somebody when you like them.
Right.
So I think I'm
Something
wondering.
I don't relate to.
Yeah, no, like I don't play those games.
I saw Keith the next Monday at school.
Aw. We're like, we had Spanish together.
No, I don't think we had any classes. No classes.
No, were you in the same grade?
No, he's one ahead of me.
Oh, okay, that's why. You're like, we saw each other on the quad. I don't know. He was like there at lunch.
And I was supposed to be in her grade, but my mom, she's just like, you need to go to school.
Get out.
So they said, hey, is he smart enough can he count? Yeah. Bye. Here's school.
And walk 4 miles.
Did you have a Trans Am? I feel like you had a Trans Am.
No.
We had one.
Pinto?
We had one. I grew up with a Pinto.
She had a Pinto.
Wood grain siding, the station wagon.
Nice.
My mom had a blue and white Pacer
Ooh.
Fact. With white interior, right?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
with two little
man.
kids. Yeah,
Wow.
Not smart.
Wow.
I mean, it's like one of those purchases. It's like, oh, look at this. I got this great car. Wait, I didn't think about the 2 little grubby kids I got to throw in the back of this.
Did we have a Trans Am that we bought
had a
for my
Camaro.
brother? Oh, it was a Camaro, and the license plate frame said, "I love cops."
I got pulled over one time for driving too slow. I go, but I love cops. We're good, right?
I didn't know that going too slow was.
He was in left lane on the freeway. He deserves a hot ticket.
Oh, yeah.
I was like somewhere in Idaho. I had it coming. They're like, oh, look at that hippie.
He's definitely stepped out of his gourd.
Him and his dog.
So I was wondering though, because the Pickup Artist came out in 1987 before this with Robert Downey Jr. and Molly Ringwald. I wonder if those like rules of calling people kind of started with that movie.
Oh, I don't know. No, I don't know because I had it like,
Is that why you didn't call me before Monday at school?
yeah, totally.
Because Robert Downey Jr. said not to.
Because we went on a date and I was like, okay, cool. And, I'm like, okay, I'll talk to her.
I don't want to seem too desperate.
Yeah,
Well, apparently it worked because then you boned. I don't know.
Eventually.
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 Like 2 weeks later.
Nice job holding out.
I tried really hard.
So when she's talking to Steve and complaining about the fact that he hasn't called and all this later on, he tells her that she needs to protect herself because Cliff likes Amazon women. And then we cut to Cliff's apartment where we get a treated to what's on his walls. And between all the rock band images are, yes, big-breasted ladies. Mm-hmm. So we see Janet asks Cliff, do you think my breasts are too small? And he says, sometimes. Nice. So then we cut to her at a plastic surgeon consulting for breast augmentation. And the plastic surgeon is none other than Bill Pullman, who is great.
Yeah,
he's so good at it. And she wants giant breasts. So we get a really fun scene of her and Bill Pullman kind of fighting over how big her breasts are going to be. He's like, no, with your frame, you should not do that big. And do you jog? You're not going to be happy. And she just keeps going for these just giant knockers.
Which
He's
I thought
trying to
was
dial it back.
interesting was they were using computer generated imaging to do that.
Yes. And as Rich said, it was kind of like weird science.
And it was very easy for them to do, so I feel like it wasn't real.
Yeah, because it was like just one button. Burp, 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 burp.
Yep. Plus, minus.
Well, no, it would have been like 15 minutes of like code.
Yes.
I would clickety, clickety, clickety,
I mean, even
clickety,
now,
clickety,
even
click.
now, it's
Right?
hard.
So we're going to go ahead and take a little break. All right, guys, we are back from the break. I don't remember where we were now. And then we get into them doing this whole like, should you call her? No, don't call her. No, call her. And so he doesn't call her for 4 days. And so she's pissed off. So when he finally does call her and talk to her, she's all pissed off. And we see a scene that I love of Linda cleaning her toilet with the blue t-shirt that Steve left at her apartment.
But you don't know till the end. She's just cleaning her toilet and talking to herself.
Yeah, but he did tell his friends. He's like, I left my blue t-shirt there. Then we see that scene.
He told her when she was slamming him out of the...
Oh, yeah, I left my blue t-shirt.
So the very next scene, right? So heavily scrubbing a toilet. And at the end of that scrubbing scene, you see the blue t-shirt is what she used to scrub that
Exactly.
toilet.
Which I thought was pretty good. So next we're with Debbie, and she goes to film her Expect the Best dating video. And this was a fun little cameo. She walks into this little store on First Avenue, and that's where we see Tim Burton. And they say for an extra $20, he'll direct your video for you. Actually, the lady says for an extra $10, and he looks at her and he goes, make it 20.
because it's going to be extra
which
work.
was such an insult.
I need to double my feet. I'm looking at this and I need to double my feet.
So then we get to see her real cheesy dating video, which is really fun.
Debbie country.
Debbie, come to Debbie country. So then we finally get to see all of the members of Citizen Dick together, and it is just the members of Pearl Jam. So it's Eddie Vedder, it's Jeff Ament, and it's Stone Gossard, and they are reading a recent review of Citizen Dick in the paper. But Matt Dillon's like, "Oh, wait a minute, I don't want to hear anything negative." And so then they're just scrolling and like kind of doing that mouth reading thing, and then they turn the page. And the only thing that they can say is, other than that, he was ably backed by Stone and Ament and drummer Eddie Vedder. Which is so
It's probably highly accurate if it was a real band.
exactly.
Matt Dillon.
We do get to see parts of that where they're just saying that Matt Dillon should move to another city and just disappear.
Oh, right. That was in the review. Yeah.
So next we cut to Steve and Janet, and they're in the waiting room of the plastic surgeon. And Steve is trying to talk Janet out of getting this Brexit, this breast augmentation surgery. And she just is going to do it. He asks her what she really wants in a guy from a girl's perspective. And Janet says when she moved to Seattle from Tucson, she wanted a guy with looks, security, someone who was caring, who had their own place, someone who says bless you when they sneeze, and someone who loves her. So she says, well, that's a tall order. And she's like, yeah, well, I've scaled it down. Now I just want somebody that'll say gesundheit, though I prefer bless you when I sneeze. So I went from somebody who will love her to just say bless you.
It was getting hard. She had lower standards.
So we follow Janet into the doctor's office, and this is my favorite scene in the whole movie because it is so wrong.
I've been trying to block it. Like it didn't happen.
I have had multiple surgeries. Jody is a nurse.
I work in ORs. Have worked in ORs.
You would not have breast augmentation surgery in the plastic surgeon's office where his desk and his potted fern are.
Yes, in a dentist chair.
In a dentist chair.
All by himself.
All by himself. No anesthesiologist, no OR nurse. It's not a sterile environment. He just has a countertop full of like bandages and bottles of alcohol.
And he did have a privacy screen facing the window.
Yeah.
Yeah, so she could go behind the window in front of the window that is facing other buildings to take her clothes off.
And all this way he hits on her.
Yeah.
And then he's trying to talk her out of it, saying your boyfriend should love you for who you are and you're perfect the way you are. And so she decides to then give him hair advice and reaches out and messes up his hair.
Yes, it's very appropriate
It's
doctor-patient
so-
activity.
She gives him a kiss on the cheek.
Yes.
It was mad. And when
I
he was
tried to
like,
block all of it. Blacked all of it.
when he was like, oh yeah, the operation, he just like swings over to this countertop that's got stuff on it. Like he's going to get ready for the operation.
Back to what I was doing.
Oh yeah, I got to let the blood drain from my penis back into my brain so I can operate on you in my office.
In this dentist chair. No
Very-
anesthesiologist. No nurse. Nothing.
And he had a suit and tie on kind of thing with his white coat.
Under
Yeah,
his
yeah.
white doctor coat,
No scrubs.
And speaking of scrubs, he wasn't he wasn't scrubbing in.
No.
There was nothing in there. She
was in danger.
he was
And
going to kill her.
Yeah, right. She was in danger at multiple points. Either his incompetence as a physician and sterility, or he was hitting on her. I mean, there was nothing
So
appropriate
many
about this
things, I
encounter.
know.
That's why I try to block it. Or I'm gonna have to report. I don't know.
I
I
know.
got a mandated reporter.
Do we need to report Bill Pullman? So I kept calling Bill Paxton.
Yeah.
It almost seems like one of those things, those horror stories you hear about plastic surgery in Mexico.
Yeah.
Oh, let's go in here. Now let's just stuff carpet rimming up.
Yeah, right. Yes.
Oh, God. Or did you hear about that lady who she couldn't afford a Brazilian butt lift, so she injected concrete into
Yes.
her butt?
I mean,
Okay, let's not go there. That's gross.
she probably Googled it and it was fine.
Right. Like,
It's like the Gorilla Glue lady. And then she did something else again, like after that happened.
what was it?
the lady who put Gorilla Glue in her hair to do something and ended up like burning her scalp.
Like instead of hair gel or something?
Yeah, it was some kind of
Straightener.
adhesive or something. Anyway, it ended up burning her scalp. They get it all fixed up, and like not even 6 months later, she does something really randomly weird like that again.
God.
So they did a psyche valve?
I don't know.
Right?
I can't remember. It
my
was some kind
gosh.
of, but it was some kind of. She was trying to do something with her hair.
Does
but
she live in the Northwest? Can we make this a rabbit hole?
I don't remember.
She didn't have hair straightener.
No.
She was African American, and so she used Gorilla Glue instead of hair
She
straightener.
tried to
Is that-
make it
that what-
permanent.
that's what it
permanent hair
was? Yeah.
straightening. Oh my, that's a good idea, I guess.
But
Oh, no, it's not a good idea. Jody, no, I'm cutting that. It's not a good. Do not put Gorilla Glue on any part of your body.
There's so many other options.
You can use super glue sometimes to suture a tiny cut, but
Oh, we have something like that.
there's skin
Dermabond.
glue. Yeah, Dermabond. I have used super glue on cuts many times on your fingers because it's hard to keep a bandage on there.
Yeah, yep.
But anyway, don't use Gorilla Glue in your hair. Okay, don't put concrete in your butt. Don't inject bleach into your veins.
Well, like we said before, don't
Don't
put
drink
anything in your
bleach.
butt.
Okay, don't put. Right. We've said that before. That's true.
Make sure you anchor it or don't do it.
Make sure it has a flared base. So anyway, Janet decides not to get the surgery, saying that she wants Cliff to like her how she is. So then we finally get to Janet with Cliff and the members of Citizen Dick, and they are, for some reason, absorbed in a documentary about bees. They are so into this documentary about bees.
This was before bees were
Like a
on
cultural
the, on the
thing, yeah.
distinction. Or,
Distinction
We're worried
list.
about-
They were already
yeah.
distinguished, but
Yeah.
they weren't starting to be
now we're worried they
extinguished.
won't pollinate our
Right.
food anymore.
Exactly. And she decides to do a fake sneeze, and Cliff just says, "Babe, don't get me sick. I got a show this weekend." And so that's when she
no
just-
bless you, no
Yeah,
gazoon
no bless-
tight.
yeah.
And that was a decision maker.
So she's broken up with Cliff now and apparently happy. I don't know, but she still takes her phone with her.
Yeah, she kept
Stretching that cord across.
Hey, I did that. I actually did that. That was one of the parts I did relate to in the show was when she took her phone across the courtyard up onto the roof, but her phone cord was still plugged into her wall. So that long cord. And I used to do that. Go suntanning, take my phone outside because we didn't have cordless phones
Right.
or wire or cellular phones. So, and as a teenager, I couldn't miss a call, right?
No way.
And I also needed a tan. There was this perplexity. I needed to do both at the same time.
Right. Yeah, that was before we.
We had like an 80-foot cord. I'm not lying.
We were the masters of the double line. We were the first kids that had, remember,
Oh, yeah.
generation. And how many relationships in high school broke up because you were not a good master at it? I'm not saying you personally. I'm just saying in general.
What do you mean? How did you get broken up with for not understanding how to
Because
use
you'd
your
have
second
two
line?
girls on the other line, and you go to
Oh,
click over,
oh,
and it
oh,
wouldn't
yeah.
click over, and you'd start talking to the other girl, and usually you were talking smack, and then they go, "No, that's me," and you're like, "Oh God," and then they call each other, and then
feel
nobody
like-
wants to talk to you.
I feel like this may have happened to you.
No,
I feel like it did. I feel like there's personal.
You guys have been
reference.
married for 800.
Yeah,
For 800
there
years.
were-
It's okay.
There were teenage relationships before us, so I feel like you did that.
What? I never did anything like that. As pure as the driven snow.
Did you ever do that,
Mm-hmm.
Rich?
No, I just couldn't remember who I went to what movie with.
Oh no!
Oh no!
So when I mentioned the movie that we had just seen the week before, I got we didn't see that.
Oh no! And you had gone with somebody else.
No, I must have misremembered the
Oh,
movie
I went
title.
to that with my mom,
my cousin.
with my sister. I was the one with my sister. You had a sister, you could blame it on her. So at this point, we get to Steve and Linda again, and we get a nice little montage of Washington, of them driving around through what looks like maybe Vashon, and then they're in Pioneer Square and talking in the rain, pouring down rain,
Yeah.
without caring.
Well, and I think in Seattle we do go out in the rain without worrying about it, but we don't stand in pouring rain and have a conversation. You
No, if
generally
we-
trying to get cover for that.
Right. If we did, we'd have a hood up.
Umbrella, something. I mean, we don't use
we
umbrellas
don't use
a lot.
of umbrellas, but if it was pouring like that, I would be using an umbrella.
Absolutely.
That's why they make bars.
Exactly.
Which they were standing outside of.
yeah, but not underneath an awning or anything. There was literally an awning like next to them, but they chose to stand in the rain.
Pouring rain.
pouring. I mean, like sideways pouring rain that we get a couple times a year.
And that was kind of an interesting thing I found when I moved here, is that nobody carried an umbrella.
Yeah.
Yet in Southern California, everybody had an umbrella. And I come up here, and the joke used to be, you could tell the tourists because
Yeah.
they're the ones carrying the umbrellas.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
100%.
Everybody else just had their Gore-Tex jacket on.
Yeah, you just pull up your head and keep going, and yeah, exactly.
Because it doesn't rain the right way around here for an umbrella to
Yeah.
really work.
I mean,
most
your
days.
legs are still wet.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
But it can also rain here for an hour,
Right.
and you're not wet.
Right.
It is.
It's just mist.
I say that there is exactly. Sometimes I'll say, "Oh, that's a really wet rain," and people are like, "What are you talking about?" I'm like, "No, like
all
you go
wet.
outside and you're soaking wet. You can go outside while it's raining and not get soaking wet sometimes."
yeah, it's just a little mist that
Where
dries.
California, when it rains, it rains.
Yeah,
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a downpour.
There's no mist.
There's
There's
no
no-
mist. Yeah. You're just wet.
They actually
2 minutes in.
the first time I went to Disneyland, which I waited my entire life for, I was in my 40s. They had to close it down because it was so windy and rainy.
Oh, jeez.
But I bring that weather.
Did you just go up to the front office and say, "Look, I'm from Seattle. I'm okay.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Can you reopen it, please?"
Leave it open.
It's fine. I'll write
No,
all
I
the
was
rain.
actually
all-
a little pissed at the universe. I'm like, I have finally made it to Disneyland.
She went full vacation mode. Don't lie.
So then we end up cutting to Linda telling Steve that she's late for her period. So then we get the montage of him at the drugstore buying pregnancy tests. This is where we get to meet Jeremy Piven, who is playing the exact same character as he seemed to from Grosse Point Blank. And this is where Jeremy Piven inadvertently costs production a ton of money. So he, in this scene, does a little bit of riff with Elvis Costello's Peace, Love, and Understanding. And what was the other one?
It was Public Enemy.
Public
wasn't it?
Enemy. Yeah, Bring the Noise, and he like riffs them together, and then the production had to go and buy the rights to those songs.
Oh no.
And Jeremy Piven's appearance in this movie was only supposed to cost $216 originally, and then it cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. So ends up, yes, Linda is pregnant.
But she finds out with that pregnancy
Oh, yeah, the
test
little, like,
with the
little
test
test
tubes and
tubes.
a little ball. And I actually, that was my first pregnancy. I used that pregnancy test.
It's way too complicated.
It was so complicated. And
I think you had to
let's-
do like a bank shot into the test tube or
No.
something. Or,
Well, I mean, it was pretty. And I did this as a teenager by myself in the bathroom.
Oh, no. Just like
So,
locked in there, hoping nobody needs to come in and use the
I've
bathroom.
always loved science. It felt very scientific.
It reminded
Peeing on
me-
the stick is so much easier.
Yes, it is. But it reminded me a lot of like the COVID tests we've had to take in the last
Yeah.
couple of years, where you're just like, there's this huge sheet of instructions and it's very specific. You have to like
100%.
mix tube A into tube B and then wait for 35
There's
hours
swab
and then
this.
swab this in a certain
So
way.
many
You
seconds.
have to go, yes.
But only use 3 drops because
Yeah.
5 drops is
Right.
not
and
right.
then go out to your car, turn it on 3 times, walk around to the back.
Exactly. There was one time where when we finally caught COVID and I was just going through the motions and stuck the swab in the thing without sticking out my nose. And then I was like, shit. So then I went and I got a Q-tip and I swabbed my nose with the Q-tip and stuck it in there. And I came up negative, but I was positive. I took a second one and used it correctly and it was positive. So like there is a reason apparently for it like that.
You forgot because you had COVID. Because COVID, I feel like killed every brain cell I had.
Yes. Yeah, it was. Yeah, I felt pretty stupid over that. Anyway, so also I wanted to point out that Steve's wearing a Mud Honey shirt that is also a Sub Pop shirt, which was the big like record label up in Seattle at the time. They just go straight to work and don't even talk about it.
Yep.
They're just like, oh, what are you doing today? Oh, I got
They
this
went
big
straight
meeting.
to that. In fact, I kept going, wait, is she pregnant or not?
Yeah, but they don't even
They
like
just-
address it. He's
yeah.
just like, I got that meeting with the deputy mayor today. So yeah, so Steve is doing his presentation with the deputy mayor. He's like, I'm gonna get you 15 minutes with the mayor. Yay, Steve! And then we are back with Debbie, which is also one of my favorite scenes, where she is showing her candidates from her Expect the Best video, where we get to see a sensitive bodybuilder, an artist,
Yes.
a magician, a bald man in a turtleneck who apparently is the guy from Sub Pop, right?
Yeah.
A guy who really loves his bicycle, and a guy who claims to be very, very lonely. And all the friends say, date the bike guy.
I was with the lonely guy. I thought that would have been a better story.
You were with the lonely guy?
Yeah, I think it would have been a better storyline.
I think she should have gone with the
It
guy.
was very,
with the
that would have
magician.
changed it to a horror film, I feel like, the way he said, I am lonely.
No, if she'd gone with the magician, then he would have been just like pulling dimes out of her nose all night long.
Yeah. Entertaining.
But Debbie chooses the bike guy, so she of course goes to REI and spends like $1,500 getting a bike and well, we don't see her at REI. This was just headcanon. She is dressed head
Was
to
REI
toe.
around then? Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
they were.
Yeah, flagship store in Seattle.
duh.
She's dressed head to toe in fluorescent neon yellow and pink, from a helmet to wraparound glasses and everything to shoes. Bought herself a bike, and we see her waiting in a where was that restaurant? Lake Union, right in front of Kenmore Air. Realizes that she's at the wrong location. We get a montage of her hauling ass to try to get to the next location. She's missed him. And the dating service gave her address to this person she's never met. So he's going to just go to her house. What?
Yeah, she shows up and he's in her kitchen. Like, what?
In her kitchen. I'm sorry. This is where I would call the police.
Right. And on the dating service.
Exactly. Oh my gosh. So because she was late, apparently Jamie, her date, ran into her roommate Pam, and apparently they went to UW together. So now they're canoodling, making popcorn in the kitchen. So this is where Debbie and Pam decide to negotiate to see how much Pam will pay for Jamie
While he's listening.
while he's listening. So it's $80, and she'll do the dishes for a month. So at this point,
That's what he's worth.
I don't think I would have rated that. I might have been $20 and
$20, yeah.
$20 and see if he takes her out for a sandwich.
I mean, he was hot in early 90s terms, right? He had the like shaggy, like,
Oh, he was
yeah,
super
yeah,
hot.
yeah.
He was the guy off 30 something. He
What
was
was
the
his name
artsy
again?
teacher.
Or
ends
he
up getting
drove like an
killed,
IROC.
remember?
In the show.
Yeah, in the
Yeah.
30 something show, he ends up getting hit on his bike.
That's right.
Yeah, he was the teacher. He was he was a really poor professor teacher.
We
guy.
were in our early 30s when that came out, maybe even late 20s.
No, we were like
What was
20.
the show?
Oh, okay, never mind.
We were like 20 when this came out.
30 something. I really identified with it. They were moms, married,
Their kids.
struggling with the life on a daily basis, just the daily life.
Next, we're back with Steve and Linda. They're walking through Pioneer Square, and he suggests that they get married, and then they somehow are immediately at Gasworks Park. What happened in between? Like, she didn't say anything,
Right,
and then
he
they're
said,
like,
if you're-
let's go to Gasworks Park.
All right.
Yeah.
He said, if it's yes, take a bite of your hot dog. And then they show this delicious looking chili dog. And then suddenly they're on the bench and there's no hot dog. I'm like, did she bite the hot dog
But
or
also,
not?
from Pioneer to Gasworks Park, you'd have to walk back to your car. That's probably 10 minutes. And then you have to drive to
Yeah.
Gasworks Park.
And
And then
then
you have to
there's that.
find parking.
Yeah.
So it was like 45 minutes to get from downtown Pioneer Square in downtown Seattle to Gasworks Park by the time you figure in getting your car, finding parking.
You got to go over the bridge.
Gotta
you
go to
know,
the bridge. The bridge was probably up.
Yeah.
So this whole time while you've been silent in the car, you didn't talk about him
never
proposing
discussed
marriage.
it again
Anyway.
until you sat on that
Yeah.
bench.
they talked about the Mariners. They were like, I really think.
They're
This is
talking
our
about
year.
the Seattle Supersonics.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
they've been talking about Xavier
At the
McDaniels
Coliseum.
the whole thing. So she seems to agree to it. Then we got to a movie theater somewhere. It looked like maybe Roosevelt District. As they drive from the theater, they get T-boned by a pickup truck. And Linda gets taken to the hospital. She has a concussion and she lost the baby. And at this point, it's where she's really obviously depressed. She withdraws. She says she needs some time alone and she's going to go on that month-long trip to Alaska for work. So there she goes on a fishing boat that she's apparently going to be on for a month.
Was it a tugboat?
Yeah, I don't know. We're like, bye, Linda.
They're
You're
doing
gonna be really
research on this
uncomfortable."
small boat that doesn't look like it has
It's not
a birthing area.
That's not a research boat.
Maybe what we missed was it was taking her to the research boat.
That could be because maybe the research boat was too big to be parked in Lake Union.
It's docked. Shay.
Dock-
It's docked,
Oh, I'm so
not
sorry.
parked.
Docked in Lake Union.
I can tell you something else about docking if you want. Just kidding, different podcast.
I don't think that's Northwest Pacific.
It's not North.
Is this talking?
Yeah. And then the foreskin goes back and forth. Cut that.
No, I'm not gonna leave that in. So another great scene in the movie. Now we're back at the Correll Court Apartments with Cliff and Janet, and he's like, "Hey, Janet, come down. I've got some for you." And he shows her her own car, which he has installed a new stereo system in. Which I was like, "How did this work? What like?" Did she just leave her car unlocked in Capitol Hill? Even in the 90s, somebody's going to take a poop in there, if nothing else.
That happened to our Camaro.
See?
It's Dirty Steve and the boys, and we're going to make man soup in there.
We sold it to one of my friends who parked it at her husband worked at he worked at a auto repair shop, and it was parked there, and he just, I don't know if they left it there for days or whatever, I don't know, and they went to go get it and people were living in it.
Oh, God.
Yeah, it was gross.
Well, I don't know how to get access to a car to install a new stereo system, but that doesn't matter.
Right?
He starts turning it up with the remote. Turn it up, turn it up. And he turns it up. Oh, while he's doing this, apparently Chris Cornell lived in that building. And this is the first we're finding out about it because Chris Cornell from Soundgarden comes out and he's just standing, not a word. He doesn't have a line. He just stands there and kind of like nods his head like a little minor head banging. And Cliff turns it up so high that all of the windows in the car shatter. He's like, I'll have the windows replaced.
Okay, thank you.
That's pretty good.
Okay, thank you. And that was the end.
Steve is really depressed. He's concentrating on work, but he can't stop thinking about Linda. He's at a club, calls her up after a bunch of beers to tell her that he loves her. But when she gets into her apartment to get her messages, her tape has eaten itself, which we've all experienced that, I'm sure. Because kids, we didn't have voicemail. You would call in, and we had a machine that had a teeny tiny little cassette tape, and people would leave messages, and then you'd have to rewind and listen to it. And sometimes that tape would get tangled, and then you couldn't hear it. That was life.
And that was life.
Yep, kids. So,
And you had to rewind and record over it again.
Exactly.
Or you'd run out of space.
yep. Somebody could,
You couldn't save it
if
forever.
somebody didn't hang up, it would continue to record and take up the whole tape with just dead space. That was very annoying.
And the other thing about that is getting the right phone number.
Yes, and we did have that scene with Janet calling to talk dirty to Cliff, and it was this
Bartender?
the guy. No, it was just some dude, but it was a. You guys knew who he was. He
The
was
guy
like
from Tad
What is Tad?
is one of the grunge bands.
Oh,
They're just lesser known. They're a subgroup. There's like this whole that once everybody know. Then there's this whole group that you like. If you start bringing them up, I think what was it, Greenwater or Sweetwater?
Green River.
No. This is not like a lot of people in the scene would know that. But then there was like the bands.
I just offended a lot of people.
Yeah, no. There's a lot of people like God. Which one was that? But they sounded like early Foo Fighters. Like they sounded like Foo Fighters before there was the Foo Fighters and stuff like that. Just a lot of weird bands like that.
Okay, never heard of him.
But Tad's kind of like the Melvins and stuff like that. They're kind of like that,
A
like
little more punk. So I thought
like
Melvins was more punk.
like all the I would say all the grunge bands like pay homage to those guys because
Sure.
they're the original kind of
Okay.
what started fleshing the sound out, but they never were commercially successful. Like
Okay.
the rest of them.
Okay. We're back. Linda's back home. Her and Steve decide to be friends. I don't think Steve's on board
No,
No.
Steve melted down.
because we get a montage of him just being sad in the city, even passing by Eric Stoltz the mime. He meets with the mayor, who is played by none other than Tom Skerritt, at Chandler's Fish House in South Lake Union. And the mayor shoots down his super train idea, so Steve apparently quits. Was that
I know
it?
that was never. I know
It was
Like,
never-
Suddenly,
yeah.
he's just in his apartment
He walks into work
wasting
and
away.
literally knocks his cubicle walls down
and leaves.
and leaves. So was it he would get fired if that, or is he just so dejected that he just decided to quit?
I think he didn't even quit. In my mind, he just never went back. He didn't even bother to quit.
Yeah, he just went in and got like something and left.
Yep.
Yeah. So he's dejected in his apartment, filling it with trash and takeout boxes. And then we're with Debbie again, and she's at the Alaska Airlines counter in another thing. You used to be able to go up to the ticket counter and just buy a ticket to get on a plane like immediately. And apparently you didn't have to show your ID.
No, you did not.
No, you just had to give them a credit card or cash, probably.
9/11 changed all of that.
Yes, exactly. So she asked that they put her in first class next to a single guy, and we cut to her on the plane, and she's next to a 13-year-old
Yeah,
who
he
wants
was
to know
single.
everything about her.
She's so picky.
She is.
She got what she wanted, and then she wasn't happy with it.
Exactly. That's a single guy. So, but later on, Cliff tells us to not be sorry for her because when she got to Cabo San Lucas, she meets that annoying kid's father who loves her earrings. And that's all she wanted was for somebody to love her earrings. And so that's the new romance for Debbie. So now we're really wrapping up the movie. We're back with Linda. She has gotten back together with sensitive ponytail Andy. And she says they're just like an old couple. It's like being alone, but together.
That sounds
very
like something
sad.
I can't wait for. Oh, that sounds awful. I'm being facetious. That
okay.
sounds awful.
I was like, what?
I know. I was like, what's happening here? Your husband's right there. He listens to this podcast and he's in this one.
I didn't let the facetious part out, apparently.
That's a nice recovery.
Cliff is trying to win Janet back, leaving her terrible voicemails and breaking into her apartment, apparently, to leave her name in rose petals. We never...
Rose petals with her name in her name were
Exactly.
suddenly showed up, so I guess we did.
Steve is...
Well, there was the what's her name? Debbie was getting that from where Cliff had to break in and do it for that guy,
Right,
for
right,
Debbie.
right,
So
right.
he
Right,
got the
I'm supposed
idea.
to sneak in and...
He's like,
This is
oh,
probably where the movie was, what, 2.5 hours?
that's, yeah.
Probably.
Probably the answers are in there
I think-
on the cutting room floor.
Now that
Right.
Rich has brought that up, I'm like, we've seen this movie soon. I'm starting to replay everything in my head. And I'm like, you know what? There is a lot of that movie that's been cut out.
Yeah.
Now that I think about it,
Yeah.
I would really be interested to see the director's
It may
cut.
have been better that long.
Maybe,
I
because
feel like-
as it stands, this movie's not great.
Right, maybe that's the missing component was all these pieces that landed on the floor.
Right. Well, I'm just wondering if maybe Bailey was more of a character.
Maybe,
than-
because he was just definitely a light glaze of a character.
Yeah, he was kind of left behind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
You're
he
almost-
started off in the beginning as you thought a main character.
Yeah, you thought that he was maybe going to have a relationship of his own, but he wasn't even like a B character. He was a C character. Yeah. Steve is now staring at his fax machine, which go Google it, kids. I'm not going to explain a fax machine. Willing a response to one of his 40 resumes when he has a knock at the door. And it's Linda, beautiful Linda with her beautiful blonde curly hair. And she says, I was just nowhere near your neighborhood.
End
She
scene.
says, I don't want to be your girlfriend. I just want to know you. And Steve says, Rich, take the line.
What took you so long?
Oh, and everybody's heart swells and they kiss next to a 5-foot-tall pile of garbage.
Yeah.
And then have sex on a couch covered with pizza boxes.
Yeah.
Everybody was so turned on.
Exactly. His apartment is filled with trash. He hasn't showered in 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Yet they're going to get it on. She's going to get
It's pretty
over this
passionate.
like little bit of passion and be like, oh.
Why do you smell like foot cheese?
Foot cheese.
And we get a scene which brings the garage clicker back into it. It's on his couch and her butt keeps hitting it. So we see the garage door opening and closing. So the garage door clickers come back around. Final scene, guys. We are back in front of the Coriel Court Apartments. Cliff is talking about wrapping up everything that's happening with the characters in the movie. Steve and Linda are getting their own place together. And he is now a solo artist. And Cliff just might live there forever. He gets into the elevator in the apartments, which does not exist.
Yeah.
And there's Janet, and she sneezes, and he says, bless you. And now she's in love with him again.
Right, because he said that's all she wanted was
That's all
somebody
she
would
wanted.
say "Gesundheit, bless you" would be better, and he just nailed it.
So all of the other problems with him apparently are
The
gone.
fact that he is just a flake,
misogynistic
immature,
asshole.
but he said "bless you."
He said, bless you. So all's forgiven. They kiss, and that's the movie.
Well, it had to end somewhere.
It did. All right, guys. Well, thanks so much. I hope you enjoyed that discussion about the 1992 movie Singles. I don't know if any else of you out there are Gen Xers and have a little soft spot in this heart for your movie like our husbands do.
Or,
Honestly, it's kind of a terrible movie,
it kind of is, yes.
except for the soundtrack.
Or maybe you're not a Gen Xer, but maybe you have some insight into us and our early adulthoods, or at least many of the Gen Xers, not myself.
Yep. And now also you've heard our husbands' voices, so you have a little bit of insight of what we hear on a
Right.
daily basis.
Yes. Is that? And are they now more of a mystery or
Exactly.
less?
I know. I bet they're imagining what they look like.
Yep.
We have called them Bigfoots, so.
yeah. There's a little hint.
Exactly. Well, if you think you would like to have our husbands back on the podcast, you can email either Jody at, it's J, not G, JODY at rainydayrabbitholes.com.
Or you can email Shay at rainydayrabbitholes.com. That's SHEA at rainydayrabbitholes.com.
And as always, you can follow us on Instagram at Rainy Day Rabbit Holes Pod. And please go on to iTunes and leave us a 5-star review. You can also rate our show on Spotify, and we would really appreciate that.
Yep, that helps us out. That helps us get more listeners.
Yep. All right, guys. Well, I hope that you're having a great holiday season. Thanks so much, and
See you down the rabbit hole.
everybody shut up. Everybody,
He's like your little brother or something.
everybody shut the fuck up right now.
Knock it
please.
the fuck off.